In today's tutorial, we're going to focus on motion. One thing to note is I have already created this document. I have a bunch of Illustrator files. I have audio files, and I also have a video and earth video. If you double click on your items here, they'll come up in your footage preview. How I brought these in, same thing as the Premiere file, import file. You can also do multiple files and find your file and then open. They will all come into this window over on the side here. You'll notice that I have a postcard image. I found this online at one of the sites listed on the website where you can get free vectors. And I separated all of these individually to create their own file. If I would have kept it all as one, it would have been compressed and I wouldn't be able to move anything. If I scroll across, you will see that it looks like it's one file, but you can tell that there's multiple layers to it. So if you want to have any movement in your vector graphics, you're going to have to separate all your images. That's a really important fact to know. So if I just scrub across the timeline here, very first thing is I have an earth spinning. And it hasn't been fully rendered out, so it's a little slow. Then I have some text appearing. And then it goes on to a new scene. So let's go back. I'm going to explain this setup a little bit more for you. Right now, I have it set to fit. So I want to see everything within this window. If you want to make it a little bit smaller, if you want to start scaling objects, you can play around with here. If you want to look at the grid placement, rulers, I'm just going to turn those off. I don't need those right now. We're not working in camera view, so we don't really have to worry about that. We're just going to keep it nice and simple for this motion. If you're finding you're not seeing all of these windows, one thing and a really good habit to get into is whenever you start up After Effects, if your workspace isn't correct, just go to Window, Workspace, Reset Standard. And yes, I want to reset it. And all your resets will come back. Let's talk about a couple of different things before we get into the motion. If I hit 0 on my keyboard, it's starting to render itself out. If you look over here, there's a green little time bar that's going through. It's starting to render out frame by frame so that we can preview it later. Now this 0 only ever works on a keyboard, and it has to be on the number lock keyboards. It's not going to work on the top of your keyboard. It won't work on a laptop. So if you're using a laptop, you're going to have to plug in an additional keyboard.
While the world continues to debate how to handle climate change, the facts are crystal clear. Climate change is real. In fact, 17 of the 18 hottest years on record, that's dating back to 18.
Okay, so I just hit spacebar there to stop it. As you can see, there is some motion going through it right now. This is not a completed document. It's in progress. You can hit the spacebar and you can play. To stop it, hit the spacebar. If you want to come up to the top, you can preview it hitting play here. If you want to do a RAM preview, that's going to play the audio.
While the world continues to debate how to handle climate change,
You'll notice,
the facts
though,
are crystal
in a
clear.
RAM preview,
Climate change is real.
The scrub bar is not moving. So that can be a downside if you're trying to work with markers and you're trying to create a marker. Let's talk about motion. So I have my layers all down here. If I toggle this down, we can see that there's the earth. Here is my text. There's all my different options for my text. This one is the word and. We have glaciers are melting, Arctic sea ice. I'm going to move my cursor over to around 4 seconds when there's some transparency, but it's starting to come through. And I want to click on the word climate. So I'm going to find through here, and I have climate is right here. Toggle it down. And as you can see, there is slight scaling and motion going on through here. I'm going to now show you how to do that with the word change. Just make sure I don't have any motion. Nope, I don't have any scaling, or I don't have any rotation. I want to scrub back and see where the climate is coming in. It ends right about here. So I'm going to start having my change come in at about 2 seconds. And I'm going to work with scaling. I created a keyframe at this point, and then I'm going to go to the end at 4 seconds. Within 2 seconds, I want it to be completed, and I'm going to hit a keyframe. So both my keyframes have everything at 100%. All I've done right now is set my keyframes. I'm going to go back to the first keyframe and just go right over top of it, and I'm going to scale it down. So I can just drag it to the left, or I can type in 0 on here. It is non-existent. And then if I now scrub across, you can see that it is scaling. So climate change, we have the climate scaling in, and we have the change scaling in. Let's do that one more time. Let's do it to real. And real, I'm going to start a little bit later. And this time I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to change the position, and I'm going to actually go to the end. I'm going to put a keyframe. Your keyframes always have to start with the stopwatch, and then every keyframe after will be the diamond. I'll go back, add another keyframe. But here, I'm going to actually click and drag and move this up. It's a little hard to work with sometimes. If you want to be really precise, again, you can put your numbers in at the bottom, but I'm just going to go and drag it above the stage here. And as I'm scrubbing, the climate comes in, change comes in, and we have is real. Let's say, for example, I want to duplicate that animation. I'm going to go on to the change, turn off my eye, make sure this is the right one, turn it back on, yes. If I toggle down and I click on the word scale, and then I hold shift and I click on my keyframe, so the word scale is selected and the keyframes are selected, I can go up to animation, save animation preset, and I'm going to call this scale in. You can see that I already have a bounce in and a scale in bounce. Those are some previous ones that I've created. And I'll hit save. And just collapse those so it's easier to see things. And I'm going to go to the is now. And over here on the sidebar, we have our effects and presets. Again, if you don't have this, you can go to Window, Effects and Presets, and it'll come up. And when I'm working with any of these menus, I like to fully see things, so I just drag around on the side. And we're going to click on Scale In, and here's my user preset, here's my Scale In. And all I'm going to do is drag it on is. Oh, and there we go. So this actually went on it quite late. And it's past the actual document here. If I click on both of them, I can drag them back. And as I scrub across the timeline, so you're going to look right here, you can see is growing. I might want to end up changing my scaling position to 100%. Maybe I want to change this one up to 200. You could also manually adjust it. So sometimes your presets work for you that you've created, and sometimes you'll have to go in and manually adjust them. Now let's look at presets that are in the software itself. I'm just going to delete this, and let's move on to the next one. So I'm going to click on the word Arctic, go up to the top here, Arctic Sea Ice. Toggle down animation presets. These were the user ones that I created, and then here are default ones. If I want to go to text, I can have animate in. If you want to see more of the words, I can just make my composition window smaller, drop in by character. I'm going to drop this on the Arctic Sea and Ice, and I can scrub across, and you can see how it's coming in. If I click on the word, or the glaciers are melting, let's say I want fade up lines. I'm just going to scrub across. And it fades up. Let's try one that's a little bit more exciting. Fly in with a twist. And if you want to adjust these, again, you toggle them down, toggle down transform, and you're going to want to look to where your keyframes are. So it's not in my transform, it's going to be in my text animation. You can see right here that there's circles. That means there's keyframes within this section, so animator. And I can see that by going back, it's in my range selector. And here I have it. I have my start, my 100%. If I scrub back and I click on the keyframe, I can adjust these values. And then again, you can go to the beginning and adjust those values if you want. So that's how to work with animation. Now, there's going to be some instances where you want to group items. You want to group, let's say, the Arctic Sea Ice and. I'm going to click on Arctic Sea Ice, Control click, and click on the word and. Up at the top, layer, and you want to go to pre-compose, which is right at the bottom here, and that's going to create a grouped layer. Now I have it in a group pre-composed layer. I'm just going to backtrack because I don't really need to do that. If you want to work with shortening clips, because this will happen sometimes, let's say you downloaded this Earth MP4 and it was way too long, I'm going to click on this and I'm going to go up to Layer, Time, and Enable Time Remapping, which I already have done for this clip. So if I scroll down, here is my time mapping. So what this means is this clip here is actually about 14.5 seconds, but I have set it so that it's just over 6 seconds. It's speeding itself up. So what it creates in 14 seconds, instead of cutting this clip, I'm speeding it up to be twice as fast. If I wanted to make this 3 seconds, I would just move this over, and you'll see how fast that the Earth is going to go now. Let's render it out and watch this.
While the world continues to debate how to handle climate change, the facts are crystal clear. Climate change is real. In fact,
so you'll also notice that it didn't fully lose the video because right now I have it setting to an alpha, the opacity, on a keyframe over here. So it's speeding up the clip to about 3 seconds, going really fast, and then it's stopping the video, and the video is fading out. over to just over 6. If I wanted it completely gone, I would have to move my fade, my opacity value back. And now you can see that I've lost it. So I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to move it back. And so the earth sits under the text. Here in our transform, you'll notice that you have your positions, your scales, your rotations, your opacity. There's a lot you can do with those. Hopefully that's enough to get you started. Have fun.